Would you like me to turn my camera off until it's my turn?
No,
That's
we
not
like work.
necessary.
Would you like me to turn my camera off until it's my turn?
No.
Amy, what was the issue with the microphones last time?
Was it a programming issue?
Learn all kinds of things about that.
No. They wouldn't even show, they won't let us inside at all yet, which I have Andy talking to him to see if he could maybe get a training inside unless they want to answer the 7 o'clock phone calls. Hey, Brian, can you hear me now? Last test.
Yes.
Thank you.
So we're waiting for Counselor Fox. And you said Counselor Alexander will be late. He's on. He snuck in. Well, I managed to leave my book with all my notes, so I'm going to shoot from the hip here. This work session is to go over our goals and basically set our priorities to help us with our budget process that's coming up. And there was a couple of points that I wanted to make in the letter that Ann put under administration. There's this. It seems like an insignificant thing, but I think it's something that is worth repeating and highlighting. It says that the summaries or input from the department heads was unedited, except for minor spelling errors. Again, that seems rather insignificant, but years ago, that was a very significant issue. What you're seeing in these letters from the department heads is their presentation. It's not a group presentation. It's not coerced or cudgeled or anything else. It's what they feel is needed to be represented to the council from their department. And again, I think that's really important. We've worked really hard to get to that point where we hear directly from the department heads and have that interaction as counselors with them. So a real important point for me. As you may know, this is kind of the alternative to our retreat, which because of COVID and many other issues, we're bringing this forward in this way in a work session so that we can get to the budget process. And with that, I will turn it over to Ann for the administration report and let her summarize.
So I don't plan on us going through line by line tonight. We don't have enough time. What we did do is put the input of the priorities of each department onto slides into one slideshow. So and it's just the priority slides. So and I'm really sorry. I have a cough that I'm recovering from that wants to hang on. So, and of course, when I talk, it makes it worse. So my question to the council is, do you want us to step through the slides? Are you pretty familiar with the packet that we sent out? Because I don't want to go too fast and you not be comfortable with the information given. So we can step through each department and just list the priorities of each department, if that's helpful. And at the end of the department, we'll ask for questions that you may have about the priorities stated in that department. Or if you feel very comfortable in your knowledge, we can step through the departments and just ask for your questions. And that will make a significant difference in how much time you're here tonight, obviously, but we're here tonight. So you tell us what it is you feel like is more important to you.
I would certainly prefer that we don't get a presentation, but
Okay.
we have discussion. I think our retreats, previous retreats have shown us that the presentation, while being good, takes up a lot of time, and the discussion is where we really want to be. And we've been disappointed because we've had to shut our discussion down because of time. So unless any counselor specifically asks for a presentation, I would like to go with just bringing in a department, having a discussion, and moving forward to the next department.
Okay. So do you want us to present just the priority titles for your department? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
they're brief
Cliff
enough,
note version.
and it brings us into what we're talking about in each department. So we got some familiarization. I think pretty much everybody's really good at doing their homework, so we should be ready to go with just bringing up the points and having discussion.
Okay, well, we're gonna follow the work session. So we'll start with city administration. So our priority number one is personnel management, training and retention. That's obviously our most valuable asset at the city. Leadership at every level. So we're training people up to be leaders in their own right, where they are. Successful project management. We're looking at a heavy project load over the next few years. And we really do need to work together as a staff to manage those projects. Communication all around is extremely important with the council, with the community, between the staff, our committees, and fiscal responsibility and budget management. And then economic development and community health and vitality. So I can stop there and see if you have any questions about any of those priorities.
One question I would have, we purchased some new software, and is that being fully implemented, and is that helping in these areas, or are we still?
Which software?
But just over the past several months, we've had conversations about purchasing new software for the city.
Oh, for operating software for finance and things?
Finance, and I thought there was some other software
So
programs that we were looking at.
city operates on one big software. It manages our finances, our utilities, our business licenses, special assessments. Basically, all the business of the city outward is managed under one software. We're currently using Acela, Springbrook. And we have budgeted to replace that software. We haven't replaced our software yet. And part of that is my decision as a city administrator of looking at whether or not our staff has the capacity to implement a new software, because it's across the board. It's everything we do. And so the last 2 years have been rough. And so I didn't feel that it was a very good time for me to put that onto my staff.
So we have it as a budgeted item
Right.
and down the road.
Right.
We're looking to do that.
We're hoping to do that, but I do think we have to be thoughtful of that timeframe of when we pull that plug, because it is, I know it's better than it used to be, but it's still a huge undertaking.
Operations are immense and very much resource heavy, not only financial, but human resources. They're, having gone through many, they're big.
once implemented, would it be more efficient and save time overall?
Undoubtedly. Our software right now is, it's in the cloud. Everything you send out, you have to wait for it to come back. It takes a lot of time to run it. It's old, it's archaic, it's not necessarily developed by people who understand financial systems.
So do you
So,
have kind of a timeline, you think that will start moving?
well, it is, we do have it, we're putting it in the budget for this year. Then if we would go out for an RFP, you're gonna want to start a new year, basically, but it, sometimes you can do mid-year, and some people have a belief that mid-year is the best time to do it. So not in your beginning of your fiscal year. So that decision would be made once we pass a budget and they are able to actually fit that cost, because it's not cheap. It's a substantial cost to the city into our budget.
Typically, what you find out is that you've done a lot of customization with your current program that isn't in any new program you buy. And so then you have to go back and try and figure out how do you customize that new program.
Creating patches to carry the
It's-
data over and
it's-
everything else
yeah.
is huge.
Just one last clarification, but there are kind of like two software paths, one that you're looking at for business and one for the overall city infrastructure. Are they separate or are they integrated?
It depends. So, I mean, in a perfect world, all of our city infrastructure comes as or all of our city software comes as a package. So you buy the modules. At the time that you sign up, you buy the modules you want. Right now, the city operates under the modules that we chose. There are other modules out there. We've at times, we were buying the payroll module for many years when I got here. And we figured out it was cheaper for us to go out and outsource the payroll and stop paying for the module. Because it was substantially cheaper for us to do that. So, so it just depends. We would have to look at each module independently.
This isn't for tonight, but it would be great to do for year end or something to get department retention and turnover reports. Turnover costs a lot of money and there's a lot of long-term staff too.
I think turnover, retention and succession, all of those issues.
Succession.
And Ann and I are having discussions about that all the time.
Yes.
And really trying to keep the city prepared for whatever could happen. And I think all the department heads are really working to try and make sure that we do have a succession plan and just thinking about, you know, the worst case scenarios and how the city will keep going. And so I think we might be ready to do a presentation, a discussion on that in a couple of months.
Yep, absolutely. So the next piece is the capital improvements administrative to City Hall. We have a lot of capital improvements, but this is specific to City Hall. We want to continue to update City Hall. The carpet is getting very worn in the downstairs. We're not so worried about the upstairs, but the downstairs lobby area needs new carpet or flooring of some kind and new paint. And then the City Hall parking, I'm still working on. The property to the north has been sold. And I'm trying to work with the new owners to make sure that we secure some parking to the north of City Hall. And then network communications and computers is always it's ever changing. So it's always going to be there. And I can answer any questions about that.
Just one idea on the carpeting. I've seen some businesses, rather than having sheet carpeting of 12-foot and 15-foot, they're doing it in like 4-foot sections, so that if you have a damaged area, you can just replace that more easily. And the way that the patterns are, you know, they're kind of a pattern so that they, you know, you replace one and it doesn't look like a patch. So
Yeah.
just something to think of.
Okay. We've also had people ask if we want carpet. Do we even want carpet? Do we want a
Sure,
nice
vinyl,
vinyl surface? Yeah, so. So for the city recorder, okay, so Sammy is really focused in on the public records management and retention, public meetings. This is a lot, both of those things is a lot of responsibility, especially right now. The last couple of years have been a lot of work for public meetings, and I don't foresee that they're going to become any easier. In fact, I think they're going to get more complicated as people have choices now of how they attend. And so that is a constant struggle, but I think that she is managing that excellently. And the city will just continue to grow as we manage those. Administrative processes and policies. How do we do things here? How do we record what we do so that it's in the books so that everybody knows how to do things? And making sure that all of those tasks are done the same way every time. And the city elections, and we would have elections coming up, so that will be a big task on her list. Utility billing is working very hard at monthly utility billings, collections, making sure they're
Ann,
accurate.
Can I
Yes,
make a couple of comments regarding the city recorder stuff?
sure.
I think everybody needs to, we should all recognize, and you said it, but I just really want to emphasize it. The hybrid meetings and the way we're doing this now creates a lot of work for our staff to make this happen for our community, to be able to have that input. And I know that Sammy and I and Ann and others probably, including legal, have a lot of conversations about making this work right and doing it appropriately. And the other part of this is the policies and procedure part of it is something, again, the staff is putting a lot of work into and need to put a lot more work into. We're seeing it with the annexation process. You know, we have an annexation lately about once every 5 years. It was once every 20 years before. And so it's this thing that we just don't do very often. So of course, you're not very good at it. And so that's one of the issues that staff is looking at, is building these policies and procedural step-by-step processes so that we can get through these and do them clean and not be worrying about hassles of missing some step in this. So I want to recognize Sammy for putting a lot of energy into that, and other staff, and also recognize the fact that there's a lot of work still to be done.
Mhm. About the time we change the processes and policies, somebody rewrites a law that makes us change everything again. So,
I'm on the state committee that goes to DLCD now.
Yay.
And that's one of the things I pointed out was we get used to something and then you change it.
Yeah.
And the change wasn't worthwhile. And so I'm moving up to a bigger area of regional effectiveness, hopefully. And I think this local officials advisory committee to the DLCD or CLDC, actually, the committee, is going to be a good process for Coburg's input into this. Yeah, I think it's going to really help the state actually working through any legislation with land use planning.
and then, so office administration, we're just really focused on customer service. The last few years have been a very interesting customer service. We continue to be flexible in how we serve our customers. And, you know, right now, my staff is working with 4 generations who all have a different way that they want to be communicated to, how they want to receive their information, how they want to attend something, how they expect that the city staff is going to interact with them. And so it's a challenging time in history, because this probably is the first time in history where there's this generational, the generations don't keep up with the technology almost. And so it is a challenge. And I think that the staff does a great job of anticipating how the customers want to be communicated to. But you should know as a council that is a stress on our staff of
think a
these this generational differences in how they expect to be communicated to.
I think a great illustration of that was Aaron, when COVID hit and we were closing City Hall. We have customers that bring their utility bill in and pay it at the desk. And they were beside themselves because they couldn't do that. And even just having to drop it in the slot it just ruined their karma. They were,
Well,
they were-
it's a
And they look
social- it's a
forward to it.
social
Yeah.
event. It's a
Yeah.
social event for them. They get to go down to City Hall and talk to the pretty ladies at the desk and it's very important to them. And so,
And you get people under 25 and I have 3 children under 25, over 20, and you can't leave a voice message for them because
right,
I'll answer the phone, but otherwise text me.
yes, right, exactly. So emergency management, I'm gonna move on to emergency management unless there's anything else that we
And
that
I'm
you-
sorry, we have economic development Main Street.
I can go there too.
Okay. Let's go there. That's.
Yeah,
fine.
let's go there. So I just want to make sure there's no more questions about administration. So economic development and Main Streets has applied for their 501c3 nonprofit. They have got their EIN number. They still have to finish work to become a actual 501c3. They need to have bylaws, form a board of directors, have a mission statement, and they are working on all of that. There is an executive committee in place and they are working on that. And so we're continuing to work with Oregon Main Street. They have been an amazing support to my staff, to Tracy, and to the committee that's working through it. So we'll attend conferences. We recently wrote a Main Streets grant for some upgrades to IAOOF Hall. Tracy's doing a great job at coordinating this community forward in a very new way of handling economic development. And so we will continue with that in the new year. Next, Sammy. So community partnerships are very important. So we are continuing with that. With the Coburg Grange and the school and all of the different groups in Coburg, trying to bring them together to work together. We're looking at a centralized website for the whole community, so that there's not multi-websites that people have to find in order to get information. And then hopefully we're going to link all the websites. So if you go on Oregon Main Streets, you can get City Hall by pushing a button, or you can get to the Grange or any of the groups. So one of the other priorities is wayfinding signage for the downtown businesses. So that would be some of those ARPA funds, and there is a group working on wayfinding. Hopefully with the anticipation that maybe we would have less signboards and some really nice signage that points the way for different businesses in town. There are beautification projects going on, plans for the budget. I just received their budget today. So some art, some flower baskets downtown, not hanging this next year because that is a financial commitment that we're just not ready to jump into yet. But there are some really nice projects going on within the Main Streets. And so we'll continue to support those with Tracy at the helm with that.
Love the art and the murals that have gone up. They're just fun to look at.
They are. So any questions about Main Streets?
I'm glad to hear we're reconsidering the hanging flower baskets. You know, that can be a big ask for lots of, for public works also to come with watered, et cetera. So thank you for
Yeah, those are expensive and to get self-watering, it's gonna be expensive. And the alternative is Public Works has to water them. And so we need to work that out before we jump into that.
That would go for either hanging baskets or stationary baskets.
The stationary baskets, we asked for businesses to step up and have one in front of their business and they watered it. And it went really well until we got that horrendous heat last year. And then there was no keeping them alive. There wasn't enough water. And so hopefully, maybe we won't get quite that much heat this summer, but we'll go with the same baskets. We still own them. The community schools offered to help plant them. And we'll get them out to the businesses again and try to work with the same agreements this year.
May have to give them little parasols.
Yeah.
That sun was just brutal.
Okay. Emergency management, priorities are to recruit volunteer members. So we are having some discussions about creating quadrants in the community where there would be representatives from that quadrant that would be some form of emergency volunteer that can provide information to their neighborhood, but also help with reporting on their neighborhood in the event of emergency. So we're working on a plan for that. We are looking at purchasing, we just finished the grant and turned it in for the emergency fuel. And also some communication radios. So that is where we're going with that. In the new year, Jim will be stepping down as our emergency coordinator. And that responsibility is going to move to a Public Works team member to be our emergency coordinator. That will be part of their job description. Okay.
I have one question. Storage for all of the emergency equipment, is that been planned out?
Well, we do have the
There's a
storage
lot of it sitting
trailer. Oh.
at
Well, I
my
do believe
house.
Brian's on the line, but I do believe there is room in the trailer
Okay.
still, but there's also room at the plant and hopefully there would be room with the new Public Works shop. So we'll find some place for it.
Excellent.
Okay. Finance Department, Tim? You want to just go through your priorities very quickly?
Sure, yeah.
Excuse me. So I want to get more proficient at that. Got a lot better, but I just haven't done it in a city until I started here in July of 2020. So I'm continuing to try to find ways to educate myself besides the school hard knocks way of doing it. And then just overall education, just continuing to learn better ways to do things in finance and overall just working in a team environment.
May I ask a question, a finance question? This is not in this packet, but there had been a notice that had come out from WHA on the budget forecast. Do you foresee that? The information from them, I couldn't quite figure out how that would impact our budget. Do you have a sense of that?
I spoke to one of our representatives on Monday with some other questions as well. And they're going to get us a real solid number. It's going to be an increase. It's going to be substantial on liability and property for sure. I think this year My memory is on the health insurance, it's not going up significantly, but I would guess going forward, it might based on everything that's going on in our country right now.
So you'll have those figures when we sit down and look at the budget.
Yes,
Okay,
for sure.
but we should expect an increase.
Yes. Sure.
That's what I assumed, but you never know with assuming.
Unfortunately, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank
You
you.
bet. Any questions? No? Thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
Sorry, guys, our orders are different than the past.
Sorry.
I'm glad I have my
Sorry.
screen. I can.
Surprise, I'm
Not a
next.
sweat exercise.
I'm sorry. That is. sorry, my fault.
All right, so with the municipal court, priority one is education. From everybody that I have been speaking to in my networks, that's the biggest thing that's been hindering us as the courts is we feel like we're either not doing something we should be because we're not having our conferences and not getting together and not having our trainings like we normally do. That's where we learn a lot of the things to change is at those things. So trying to educate ourselves. So that will be a big thing moving forward. Judge Williams was at his conference, I want to say last week, and was already texting me, are we doing this? I see this. Are we doing this? Are we not doing this? I'm like, okay, let me write all those down. We'll have to look at that. So that was his first time back, obviously, as well. So priority two, back to the state retention policies. This last, let's see, in January, February, I actually was able to destroy up to 10 boxes. Granted, some of those had been in my office a while, so I'm not quite caught back up, but it was a good feeling to get rid of some of those due to retention. And then the scanning project is going really well. I still have my temp, which is basically I scan, she names, and we're kind of keeping up with it. So that's going really well. And hopefully I can get to my goal and have my violations done by the end of this fiscal year. We'll see how that goes. And then the priority four that we kind of been bringing up lately is we only have one court-appointed attorney that helps us. And so Judge and I have been trying to reach out to the U of O, to some other places to see if we can get someone on to help us. It's hard to give one attorney all the cases that we see and not expect them to be overloaded. So we're trying to bring on some new fresh attorneys that maybe would like to get that going for their career. It's kind of a good step. That was all I had for my priorities, other than just your day forward.
About the court appointed attorneys, can those be like end of, I mean, they would have had to have.
Yeah, so they have to be attorneys. So what we're looking at is they have what they call a job pool board at the U of O. The judge is kind of familiar with this because he actually graduated from the U of O with his law degree. Then they can reach out. Sometimes they have actual meetings where people can come in from different attorneys' offices and actually, basically apply and do backgrounds and whatnot at this big job event. Basically, it would be posting our court-appointed attorney information, what we offer. And we only actually require them to fill out, really just send in a resume and qualifications. There's no hiring process other than the judge just signing off on it, making sure they have their credentials. It's not actually a hiring process. And it all falls in the same budget. So there's no change anything. It's just, we feel that one attorney is not efficient.
Pretty neat.
Well, and it's really hard. I always like to have at least a female and a male, just because there are some cases where one doesn't do well with the other or vice versa. And Mr. Colstow has stayed with us, and plus he has some pretty major health issues. So that's our other concern is I don't want to overload him. So I'm hoping if we can at least get one, possibly two more on our list. I had 4 when I started. It was a great rotation list, but they're far advanced in their law, so their practices, so they're not wanting a court appointment position anymore. So.
So for planning, we are, part of it is trying to figure out what development's gonna happen in Coburg. And then as you well know that, we used to have a good system of talking with our developers and having a good idea of what's gonna happen in Coburg. And in this year particularly, I'm kind of more leaning towards a more, a smaller growth. Because I have, the last couple of years, we've kind of got caught up with developers who say, yep, we're gonna go, we're gonna do it, and then we wait and we wait and we don't see any paperwork from them. And so we are going with just a more conservative approach this year with planning, but development is happening, and I would say every week we're having some kind of a meeting with somebody who is looking to develop in Coburg. And so while we're not expanding and we're not looking to expand, there's a lot that can happen within the city limits right now. So that is, managing that is a pretty good process right now. Addressing the transportation issues, this is huge, and it takes a lot of our time. There's so many meetings and so many grants and so many issues that we need to address. And at this time, all cities are trying to address theirs as well as the counties and the state as a whole. And Coburg is having a significant amount of pressure put on us right now to step up to some of the issues that we want to solve. And so that's a fine line when we are being asked to step up to solve issues for infrastructure we don't know. And so, we are doing that. We're stepping up, but yes, sir.
Who is putting this pressure on?
Well, it's a pressure because we're getting pressure from businesses who want to see the work done. We get pressure from developers who can't, they needed to be able to develop. The I-5 bridge is a big pressure on Coburg right now.
And there's
Yeah.
other parts of it, and it's pressure in a negative way.
It's not a
We've been-
negative way.
We've been waving flags, hey,
Yes.
look at Coburg, and so they're looking at us now. Now we need to
Yeah.
do something besides
right.
wave a flag, and so participation with the county in looking at, of course, Coburg's priority number 1 and 2 is Lane County's number 105 and 106, but we're trying to bump it up higher. So looking at things like jurisdiction and alternate routes for commercial traffic and stuff like that, which is outside of our jurisdiction. We can't do those things inside the city limits, so we have to ask Lane County and the state to help us with those things. Well, they're turning around saying, okay, what can we do for you? It's like, oh, we got to get to work now.
Well, and it's more of, we'll cheerlead you. Yes, yes, we will put our name on that co-grant with you, but you guys are going to have to do the heavy lift. And so, because we are already at our own capacities. And so it's exciting because we do have good relationships right now with the region. And there are many people in the region who really want to help Coburg. But it's also a capacity issue, is that we have to be realistic as to what we can manage all at one time. And so it's a biggie, and it's a balance, and that's going to be for the next several years.
If
And
we didn't have other projects, just the tough issue and the financing with the fuel tax and that whole street improvement thing is a huge project in its own and
Its
a huge
own.
lift. And then all of these other things are swirling around that. So there's a huge capacity issue here.
yes. So the implementing the work of the ad hoc committee, they are wrapping up their work, and it's looking like it will be coming to planning commission very soon. And then they will decide whether they want to ask the council to continue or not. And I will let them address that. But they've done some great work and some hard work. And so I think that we'll be seeing their work very soon. So Megan has been working really hard at recording processes. And so we really want to put some pressure on planning to continue to do that. And so we are recording processes as we go. Facilitation of the planning and commission, there's a lot of management for planning department, the planning commission and the heritage committee, and the ad hoc committee. And so it's a heavy facilitation. And then project management, planning is integral in our capital projects. They have a hand in every project because there's always a planning portion of that. So project management is big, and Megan is great at stepping up, raising her hand and saying, what can I do to help? I think there was one more.
I do too, but I thought.
It's continuing education, and that's in every department. But we can go ahead and go to park. Ryan, are you there?
I am. We just have a few priorities in the Parks Department. The biggest thing is continuing working on the relationship with the Parks and Trees Committee and really propping that group up to make them feel like they're successful and to help them be successful. The other priorities are, obviously it's always education, and park upgrades, and probably one of the biggest ones is the seasonal assistance. Does anybody have any questions about the parks?
Here, you mentioned the relationship with the park committee. Is there any struggles with that, or because they definitely do due diligence and
Yeah, a few years ago, that relationship was strained for many different reasons. But we've just been continually trying to bridge that gap and really help that group be successful.
I think one of the things that you look at is we look at things like donation policy and other issues with volunteers and things. Recognize that the Parks Committee is the one that started all those things, started the seed anyway. And so it's been a lot of hard work. They're very driven people, and they've got a lot of great ideas. And it's just been getting it to mesh together and have policy and understanding between staff, the community, and that committee. And that committee, there's a huge amount of seniority on that, tenure on that. I mean, one of them has like 26 years on that committee. So they've got a lot of ideas. They've got a lot of thoughts and processes, and trying to get the city government and the people and that committee together and working well. And kudos to Brian and the staff, because I think they're working very well together. You guys know my wife is on the committee, and she's really happy with what they've done. They've had a lot of success in the last 5 years to help them be successful. So I don't think that stress is there. I think it's always a work in progress when you're trying to work with the community and still deal with city policy and stuff. So it's not just Parks Department anymore. I think that's a lesser issue. Yes, Ash.
But I'm talking to a neighbor today. She's very pleased too, so I would certainly echo what you have said now.
And that's kudos to Brian, because I know it's been hard work, and they've all had their ideas, and I think they've come together and put something together that works. So good work.
came up with this order?
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
There it is.
Let me get back to the police here.
There
we are.
No, he's standing up.
He's already standing up.
It's up to you guys. I'm here no matter what. So
Oh, and it's
He's got a
it's
gun.
up on the screen, so.
You're all good.
All right, continue with the theme. Training is a priority for the police department. In the last legislative session, 21-22, there was 27 police reform bills. With every one of those, there's normally a training component. I think everybody wants to have trained police officers. Part of the issue is that training classes cost anywhere from $250 to probably $450 per 8 hours. Depends on what the topic is. And then you might have training and per diem, so it can get relatively expensive really quick. So with that, we're always looking for ways to get free training. So I have worked with the sheriff's office. They're gonna put on a critical incident team training class, which is 40 hours. All the police officers are going on different weeks in October. So that's gonna be 40 hours. That's gonna be no cost to us. So we're always looking for ways to save money. And also with that, the police department's going to host a mental health first aid class for all city staff in September. So we're always looking for ways to do that. Number 2 priority is computers for the cars. We've been able to buy 2 Surface Pros, so I think I need 2 more, and then we'll accomplish that. Software, I was able to last week buy 2 new licenses. So that hopefully I can achieve that before we get all the way through budget and have some direction on the costs. The computer software, that's for the Surface Pros in the cars, working with ODOT. They've now changed their policy. They are going to do truck inspection reimbursements. With that, I think that we're going to be able to get the Aspen program for free. So again, it's about relationships and being able to work with other agencies to accomplish things. And then the last priority is firearms would be ammo, because it's constantly going up. Availability really hasn't been an issue, but the cost is slowly trickling up. So I just don't know what the future is going to hold regarding ammo. And then if anybody has any questions.
Council Raymond.
What's the status on the new patrol vehicle?
Well, I tried to get a status 2 weeks ago. They don't have any idea when we're going to get it. It's been ordered for over 6 months. We just had trucks broke into. One of the dealerships are in town, and they're short 900 CPU units for the brain for the vehicles. So they can't even service customer trucks. So I don't know when we're going to get it.
And the status on the 3 used vehicles that we donated from Pakistan there.
Oh, they're all, well, they're in service. One of them just had a intake manifold issue. So it's $1,200. And we've ordered the parts on that this week, and they don't know when they're going to get them. So it might be 5 or 6 weeks. So that's why we have, it's Officer Miller, and he's going to be driving one of the old Crown Victorias for patrol.
So we'd look at the slow attrition of the donation to others, given the supply chain issue.
Correct. Yeah, I was thinking about reaching out to the sergeant up in Clackamas County, because they have hundreds of vehicles, and seeing if they have any new rotation that they're going to be doing, maybe pick up a used one.
I know a big priority for you and your staff is the liaison with the community.
Yep.
Have you been able to do any community education? Sending out information about how we as property owners can help in keeping our properties safe and reducing crime?
I have not done any of that particular outreach. We do have the Community Shred Day on April 16th, Saturday. And then April 23rd, we have the DEA drug take back on that Saturday. We have I Love You Guys training, which is emergency management training for the school if we have a school shooting or a school incident. April 8th, we're having a class for all staff at the school. And then in June, we have a 3-day ice cream social with all the kids at the school for their end of school event. So we have all those scheduled. That's all we have at this time.
Yeah, I wonder if even maybe information in the newsletter about, you've talked before about having lighting, automatic lighting, making sure vehicles are those sorts of things that we as community members can do, hopefully make it better for us and better for you.
Yeah, I'll look at doing that for the next newsletter. I know I've talked to Tracy. I think we have the pedestrian sting coming up. I think it's in July, and we have an ODOT person coming down to be the decoy, to cross the street because it's dangerous. So I think we have that coming up, and I've talked to Tracy about having that in the newsletter as far as a little bit of educational information, but I'll see if I can add some more safety stuff.
Remind me on the SCRAM program and what's the update on?
It's pretty much been consistent. We really haven't had any new people apply for that. I think we had 12 people registered last time I checked.
That's the radar gun?
No, that's the security camera registration and mapping is the SCRAM program. One of the reserves went out door to door to some of the businesses. It's been just pre-COVID. And we contacted, I don't know, probably 40 plus businesses, but I think we only picked up like one registrant. The radar program, that's kind of, I need to implement that. We haven't done that. We had a couple of classes scheduled at the very beginning of COVID. And then when we were not under lockdown, we had it scheduled again, and then we had lockdown again. So I have not completed that, but I'll try to get that scheduled. So that's the CARET program, citizen assisted radar enforcement program is where they check out the radar gun.
I would just like to say, Chief, that again, you do a great job with the reserves. They like being here, obviously, because they stay. And getting out and helping other agencies, and like you said, networking, helping us with vehicles and other things, equipment that we get at bargain basement prices is great. And I appreciate the effort that you do and your officers do to get out there and network and help other areas with like the fire issues. And I know the World Games coming up, and whatever else pops up that our reserves and officers are able to help does pay off for us. And I recognize that. And the other thing is the things that you do with like hosting. I know in fire service, when you host a training, well, you don't pay for it.
Yeah.
You let other people pay for it. And so that helps us too. So I appreciate those efforts that you guys put into that. Thank you.
You betcha.
Have a question? Councilor McConnell, did you have a question? Okay.
And can you provide the priorities for the sewer department?
You betcha. So, training, I think you're probably getting the gist of what all of the departments at the city of Coburg are gearing up for as training. And the sewer department, we're just trying to really emphasize that, get training on the treatment plant and the collection system for all of the crew members, to where they can really feel comfortable and confident in how they interact with each other, with others, and their knowledge base at the treatment plant. We really need to get back on our inspection program. Right now, inspections are spotty, but we do a lot of inspections because, every time we get called to a site, the crews are doing inspections there. The Premier RV tank replacement, that's going to be a big capital improvement project for us over the next couple of fiscal years. And number 4, I think we've talked about inflow and infiltration in the past. With a step system like we have, inflow and I is kind of a smaller concern compared to other cities that have a gravity system, but we still have to, we're still required by the DEQ to report on our activities trying to reduce I&I. Obviously, what we want to do is, try and limit the amount of clean water that we treat at the wastewater plant, because that costs money and it takes up capacity at the plant. So DEQ is kind of going through a phase change. This happens quite a bit at DEQ every few years. You'll get a round of retirements, and the people that fill or backfill the positions, they're really just trying to the nicest way to put this is they're trying to do their job, and we understand that. So those are the priorities in the sewer department. Does anybody have any questions?
Brian,
Yes, sir.
last year about having extra equipment and service and replacement parts. Is that still an issue for you?
Well, yes and no. The supply chain problem that everybody is facing is obviously impacting us, but we do have quite a bit of replacement parts and inventory on the shelf. So as soon as something gets used, even if we have 2 or 3, we do put in an order to have things replaced. We have some extra pumps, mixers, and motors, just in case something happens. Those can be rebuilt locally. But again, even rebuilt locally, that the pumps that get rebuilt, those take parts, right? So, if they're at the pump shop has to order parts to fix those pumps. So right now it's not a huge concern. But as prices go up, things in the plant, in the collection system ages, it's always a concern.
There's still a huge turnaround, even if we get it rebuilt local.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
I saw your team out there on Coleman Street in the middle, up and down a couple blocks. Is that the once every several years pumping of the sewer system, or?
It's hard to say. I know that they were out there. We're getting ready to do, and we'll talk about this in the water department, but they were probably doing some potholing for utilities. So they were out on Coleman quite a bit, because that's a big part of the water master plan projects.
Brian, we moved to the street department.
You bet. Streets, we've been planning and planning and planning and planning for street improvements for some time. My frustration has grown to a fever pitch. We just got to get some projects done, started and done. And we're starting to see those plans and projects being put together and getting ready to be implemented. So that's a great thing. Let's see. Again, team training. It's always important to have the crew understand what they're looking at, especially when we start moving into these capital improvement projects. And priority number 4, the street sweeper and maintenance equipment. I think that that's going to be a big thing for us moving forward, is trying to keep, streets clean and looking good. I think that we could all agree that when the county does come through and sweeps Van Dyne, Willamette, and Pearl Street, it really looks great. It looks sharp, and people that drive through town notice that. They always have. So, that's going to be a big thing for us, especially in the residential, the local streets. Keeping things clean and tidy is going to help out. Does anybody have any questions about the streets?
So Lehman.
I may have missed this, but where are we in the process of getting the total funding for our structure?
Sure. So in the next council meeting, there will be a resolution for you to approve funding to go to ODOT. There's actually an ODOT bank, and it's a OTIB loan. So the application's complete. I've been in contact with them multiple times. They did a pre-look at our app and said it looks pretty good. And so at this point, the council needs to approve me signing an application to go and get approved for the funding. We do have 2 large projects this summer that depend on that funding. Roberts Road, which is a big project, and it is in horrible shape. And then also Mackenzie Street downtown, both sides of Mackenzie on both sides of Pearl would be also scheduled for this summer. And then let's see, a couple other streets as well. So we're in the engineering phase right now on those streets. It's perfect timing, but we're hoping to get the funding in place so that we can go forward late summer, early fall, when we can get them done.
So for the overall total project that you envision the
Mhm.
city doing over the next 4 or 5 years, are we getting individual fundings, or is it one large master funding that's implemented, or?
So right now we're asking for 2.5 million. And it's a really hard question to answer, Counselor Lehman, because the CPI index is all over the place. And I mean, it went up 7% this year. I've never seen it go up 7% since I've been in finance. So for us right now is we're doing our best to look at the street taxes and the TUF combined with the funding. And is that going to cover our projects? We won't know until we get into them. And none of us know. And Brian can echo this, is that we can guess or we can project what we think a street needs. But until we pay the engineers to go out there and engineer that project, we really don't know what that project needs. We have a good indication, but sometimes there's things we don't plan on. And so every street has to be engineered. Even for seals, that's engineered. And so until we can get each of those projects engineered, we really don't have a true picture of what they're going to cost. What we do know is year to year, Brian and I have worked out a plan where we're engineering 1 year and building the next, engineering 1 year and building the next. So we've built these budgets in for the next 5 years of working through all of our projects. And I have been able to get a budget in that looks like it's going to work for the street department, utilizing the funding that we have. So.
And are these fundings, are they amortized out for 10, 15 years?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah. So we would, you can only borrow on streets for 10 years.
And is there grants that are backfilling some of this, or is it all?
Well, so basically we're hoping, so there's a lot of infrastructure dollars coming. There'll be MPO funds coming, but unfortunately, some of those funds are only for streets that qualify as a federally funded project, and many times local streets don't. And so we do have streets that can qualify. For instance, parts of Coburg Industrial North will qualify for MPO funding. So when that funding cycle comes up, we'll apply and maybe we'll get it. So we can apply for STA grants every year, but what we found is even if we apply for them, we can't get the work done. I mean, these projects take time. So at least every other year, we can get $100,000 grant there. But as transportation funds become available, we're absolutely going to go for the grants. And we may not have to borrow the 2.5 million that we're asking for. And we might still have to borrow it. It just depends on what the costs are at the time when those streets are engineered.
The last question related to that, you know, we had quite a bit of discussion about having to update our code on the streets.
Mhm.
Where
It's done. That's done and it's being implemented into the development code. And it has an alternative. You can choose alternatives for designing narrow streets.
Brian, is it my understanding that even when you engineered the road and then they tear it down, they could look at road base and determine whether the road base needs to be completely torn out or it's fine and we just cap it?
Yeah. So that is correct. Anything that we've identified as a reconstruction has already kind of been mapped out, pre-mapped for that. We haven't seen, since that was done, we haven't seen much failure in the streets that haven't been identified for that. Now, what I have done is I have found a few spots of failure in some of the streets that have been called for preventative maintenance. Those will be easily remedied with, dig outs. So, you cut a 10 by 10 square out of the street, you dig that down, bring it back up with proper base and pave it to the top, seal it. And then, the preventative measures that we're talking about are crack sealing and then a seal coat. So a seal coat would go over the top of that. Will that patch show through a seal coat? It could, but what we're doing is we're trying to get that failure to not fail anymore. So a good road surface.
It's on streets. So Fox,
When we determine like the Roberts Road top is shot, we're not gonna repair the road base so that potholes wouldn't go. We'll stick with the road base, the gravel underneath.
It's very possible that will be the case. There will be some, there is some spots of extreme failure on Roberts Road. But what I see on Roberts Road is a lot of raveling. So the pavement, the mix design probably wasn't adequate for the traffic that we're seeing out there. So, that pavement's just kind of falling apart at the top, and then, moisture gets down through those cracks. And then that's when you get, a section of failure. So we've identified the spots that we think have failed, and that'll be kind of what we look at. Now, Lane County is in the process of going through and coring the asphalt and the road base to kind of see what's going on out there. And we haven't got that data back yet. So I'm sorry. I
go
talked
ahead,
over.
Brian, I'm sorry.
The water department, I think we're all very familiar with the water master plan projects. There are some things that have come up recently, and I think we're as the water team works through those design issues, I think we're going to come back to city council with some recommendations for alternatives. But we're really trying to get these projects through design and put out to bid. We've been able to get a couple off of our plate. Obviously, the connector to the I-5 bore, that was a big one. So that's really a lot of what we're doing right now, especially myself and Ann and the engineering team. We've been really focused in on trying to get new main line put in. We were able to get a few hundred feet of new main line on North Coleman done. So that's big. And we were able to kind of tear up that Mill Street intersection and gear up for a tie-in that would go north and south on the rest of North Coleman. Again, team training. You know, the priority inventory system, I'm not sure it is a priority for us, but to be quite honest with you, I'm going to be very blunt. We are at max capacity in Public Works. So trying to achieve that priority or that goal is going to be difficult for us because we don't have the time. And then the operations facility, engineering and design, and that should probably say build. That's going to be a big thing for us too, moving into our new operations center in the next, hopefully 2 fiscal years. It's just, Public Works is going to be very busy. We are way overloaded with projects, and we are not taking on anything new at this time. We're trying to knock some things off of our plate before we can add anything to the crews. Does anybody have?
On the water line,
Yes, sir.
Coleman,
Yeah.
is it my understanding that we have good lines under Pearl Street when we head south? We don't have to dig up Pearl Street to replace that?
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case. What we're doing is I'm trying to solve 2 problems at once. And one of the big things in the master plan is eliminating asbestos concrete pipe. And in order to do that, I've asked the engineers to kind of go with my idea of running a larger pipe up Dixon, eliminating a 12-inch AC line that runs down the alleys between Dixon and Pearl Street, and running that 12-inch line back up around North Coleman and to Lincoln. That gives us that transmission line from the wells to the reservoirs, and we're going to be able to eliminate several hundred feet of 12-inch AC at the same time. So to answer that question, Mayor, it's possible that the line underneath Pearl Street right now is adequate, but if we go the route that I'd like to go, we probably will have to dig up Pearl Street.
Crossings do we have on Pearl Street?
That's a good question. I know we cross at Coleman, and I want to say we cross at Miller as well.
'Cause I know 20+ years ago, we did an emergency water funding to replace the pipes that were going there when they were redoing that road bed. Was that replaced with AC pipe?
Well, I do know that there's AC pipe. Well, I don't know this for a fact. The maps say that it's still AC pipe from Diamond Street to Coleman. Whether it's, it transitions to PVC somewhere around there. I know that there is some PVC pipe on North Coleman and Lincoln and back around to Miller.
I guess my question is we should try and find out what was put under Pearl Street when the county came to us and said we had to replace those pipes.
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of what we call pre-surveys. And we contract a Vector to come out and pothole the water mains, the sewer, the gas lines, any utility that we can find that could come into conflict with our project.
The answer to that question.
Seems like we should have documentation about what we put under Pearl Street when we had to do that emergency water funding to replace those lines.
Well, I've been here since 2013. I've never seen a very accurate map. We have Bob Butler's AutoCAD map that he had, and a lot of that does talk about AC on Pearl Street.
20 years ago at least.
Wait,
I was here, so. I remember. That street's pretty nice.
It seems like Lane County might have record of that because they're the ones that told us we had to replace those lines and we had to do, I think we're just getting ready to pay it off. We had to do a emergency water funding.
I believe it's part of the same thing that possibly would be.
Yeah. Anyway, just something to look at because I do remember the county came to us and essentially made us replace those water lines underneath Pearl Street so that they would meet new standards so that we didn't have to dig up Pearl.
Burke just texted me and he brought up a good point. Are you sure that's not for Willamette? Because I remember in '97 there was a lot of mainline replacement on Willamette, but I don't recall anything on Pearl Street being replaced. I could be wrong, but
Pretty sure it was Pearl Street.
On the funding documents, on the reimbursement requests and on the reporting for those 20-year-old loans, there's some reporting that might be helpful to you.
we can definitely look that up.
Yeah.
Because I think Jack was actually digging, trying to find the line when they were looking to replace them and cite them. And it was at Pearl and Coleman. when
Okay.
I saw him doing that.
Okay.
Might be wrong because it was a long time ago, but I know he was digging there and I'm pretty sure we replaced that line for Lane County.
It's very, like I said, it's quite possible. But if we go ahead with trying to, upsize the pipe on North Coleman to tie it back into Lincoln, that it wouldn't matter. It would be a moot point.
Understood. Just a try.
Yeah, and to kind of tie everything in Public Works, we're really looking forward to getting some development done. And the next 5 years is going to be very stressful trying to get streets and water projects done. I think, 5 years from now, we're all going to be able to take a collective breath. And hopefully I see it before I keel over. But the future looks bright for Coburg, and I don't want to downplay that at all. Even though we're very busy with projects and trying to get things done, the future looks bright. It really does. We're going to get a lot of things done, a lot of infrastructure things done. And I think for, I'm not going to say generations to come, but definitely for, a 20-year a forecast, it looks great.
Looking forward to you seeing that completed.
Me too. Does anybody else have any questions before I mute myself?
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all of your support for the Public Works Department. The one thing that the crew will say is they absolutely love the fact that you guys are very supportive of them. So
Darn it.
Works hard. It's great. One thing on the water department and the water project that I want to give the council heads up is that on April 26th, there will be a work session. Is that right? Amy? April 26th, and we will be talking about one portion of the water project. We are going to have to make a change in plans for the capital project for the reservoir. And we don't know what that is yet, and I don't want to get into it. I'm not an engineer and I'm not a public works director. And I don't think that Brian can even answer the question right now. But I would say that it's a substantial change. And I wouldn't want to just drop that in on you. That the cost of the change is going to be substantial. We don't know yet, because we don't know what the final design will look like. We have people that are doing a feasibility study right now. But we do know that the reservoir as planned is not going to work. And there's reasons for that, but I'm gonna let the professionals explain it to you on April 26th, because I'm not a water engineer. And so I would probably flub it up, but basically the water master plan as it was developed years ago, placed the reservoir in a place on the hill that it is just simply not going to work. It has to do with pressure on the system. And so we're looking at alternatives. The water committee got together, they did meet, they did choose an alternative design that they asked the engineers to go back and look at the feasibility for it. And that's where we are right now, is that work's being done. And they will present to the council at your April 26th work session.
Will that start at 6?
6 o'clock.
What was the original timeline on the water reservoir?
Oh,
Last year.
no, of course, no. The reservoir was really one of the last things that was gonna be happening, so it would be the end of 23. I think we had a extension on our water project. We're gonna have to push it again, and that's not abnormal, and that stressed me out at first, but Business Oregon assured us that no, this happens all the time. As cities dig into these projects, things have to be changed and it pushes it out. And so right now, I'm hoping that our project is done by the end of 24. And maybe it'll get done before that. I just don't know because I don't have enough information at this time.
And nobody does, even the engineers.
Right.
They're having staff problems just doing our engineering work, let alone contractors
Right.
having staff to get stuff done.
I will say this about the alternatives for the reservoir. The alternative that the water team is probably going to recommend to the city council will be the best. It actually is going to be better than what would be up on the hill. And the reason why I say that is the alternative helps the system operate way more efficiently. So way less power consumed with the alternative. So as an operator of the water system, I was just tickled pink when I saw the alternative, just tickled pink.
And we are doing feasibility right now,
Yep.
just looking at what is feasible. And the water team looked at many issues, and operational maintenance issues was a big part of that. Safety was another one. And so
We are meeting on Friday with the design team on Friday.
interesting meeting. Also, Lehman.
What is the membership of the water team?
So it's the mayor, Jerry Bainey, yourself, Brian and Burke, our engineers, and then Business Oregon is on that team, and LCOG support staff, and our finance director.
Just not receiving any messages about the meeting, so.
Oh.
And we could be sure that I get on that.
Because you were invited to that last
You
meeting.
were. in
It was when you
Mexico?
were out of town.
You were
yeah.
in Mexico, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
yeah.
it happened then.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's only
that's-
been one meeting.
I tried to get back for that.
Yeah, I think it was the day you were coming home, if
Okay.
I remember right.
So
So
there haven't been. numerous
there hasn't
meetings.
been numerous, no. That meeting was held just so the team could pick an alternative. And I know that Brian's excited about the alternative from a financial background. My head's spinning a little bit. And I'm, so that's where my head goes and his goes to how can I better run the system. So we'll all find a way to come to a center on
Do we
that.
have a determined next meeting date and time?
For the water team. I don't think they're gonna meet again until the council receives information. So. We can answer any general questions, and if you guys have written questions down that you'd like to ask at this time, or we can move on. The capital list, I think we talked about most things on the capital list. In fact, I think we talked about them all. There isn't much on there, so I don't know if, but this is what we build the thing that's not on here is that the chief did put in another car that will be into the budget, a fleet. With that, unless there's any questions on the capital list, we can move on to the goal sheets. And I did send out a new goal sheet to you this last week because I added a few goals. Okay. Got it. Okay.
So if you're joining us by Zoom, just make sure the goal sheet that you're looking at is highlighted and says revised in the title.
And it has some bright orange marks on it. John, yours is right to your side there. It has this big bright orange box. Yeah, that one. I ended up adding a few things. Mainly the police, we want to make sure that we're continuing to update our fleet. A couple of things that I added since you received it was the alley analysis. I had left that off. And Counselor Lehman had asked that the council consider looking at the sign ordinance. So we wanted to move that into the work plan. One of the things we're running into over and over again as we write grant applications and even as we write funding applications, the question of how is your project going to meet diversity, equity, and inclusion? How is this project going to enhance the ability for your community to fairly access the assets you're building? And they want statements, adopted statements of the governing bodies, or they want plans that the city has put together or proposals. And so we had talked a little bit about this. I don't know if you remember 2 years ago before COVID, about whether or not we would form a committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion for Coburg and look at that. Just nearly every city is doing something on this. And I don't know that it's a big, huge piece of work for Coburg, but maybe to form some citizens who look at it in comparison to what other cities are looking at. It's a little bit different for the city of Portland than it is for the city of Coburg. And that's really hard to convey in grant applications because our equity and inclusion looks different. I think that we're looking at a lot of making sure that we're providing for different demographics.
And I think that's an important aspect right there, the
Yeah.
demographics. And I think we all need an education as to what's really here in Coburg.
Right,
uh,
yes.
Because I think there's a lot more equity issues in our community than we realize.
Absolutely. And
And this, like Ann said, this is a very important part of the grant issues that come up. MPO just placed this pretty much at the top of their list
the
on priorities
priorities.
of actions.
Yep.
And so MPO money is for transportation, which we're going to be applying for, and pretty much everywhere. It's, these questions come up. So I think this is a good point to move forward on. And I think there's a lot of education that will probably open our eyes as to
Okay.
what's really here in COVID.
I think that's an important point because knowing constituents are is important. And last time I was on council, when the Coburg Charter School was going to 4J and was regarding funding, they were given feedback that they hadn't considered the diversity of inclusion of different populations. Do that. So that was years ago. When we talk about streets, we'll have to talk about wheelchairs and that type of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The I-5 thing is a big issue to me. I think that's one of the points we really have to emphasize, and we need to educate ourselves to be able to do that, because you cannot get residents that are on the other side safely over here unless they're in a car.
Right, former Mayor Pudlow about following someone in a baby carriage across the.
Yeah.
You might not even be able to get them over here safely in a car.
True.
Well, and I was appalled one day when I was coming to work. I told Sammy Kwan was crossing the bridge, and I just wanted to stop my car and get him off the bridge, and because it's not safe. But I think at Sisters, we did a similar citywide and figured out that you think Sisters is opulent, but it's a 50% poverty rate. And you don't know that until you, and you can get some county studies and things like that, but till you talk with your public and really get their idea of, what does equity inclusion mean to them? I think these are questions we need to ask as a community. And so, and I know that our park grant, the park committee did a fantastic job of looking at this, because they were looking at how do we build a park that includes everybody, that everybody has the ability to participate in recreation in this park. And so they've incorporated some really cool ideas for a wall that you touch and there's water running down it, and accessible pathways and accessible bathrooms and parking. So I think it's an important piece of work that we hope to get done in 23. But I'm happy to answer any questions about anything that I've listed on the list for 23, or if you have ideas of your own that you would have hoped that we did list that we missed. As what I do is I take all of the priorities of the departments and the committees and move them onto this list. If we haven't finished a goal from last year, a priority from last year, it's still on here. And I will be giving the council, there was an updated report inside this packet that was color coded, and I did provide a little thing at the bottom, but we'll keep updating you on that. But if we don't finish something and we take it off, we'll let you know why we took it off. And so I don't know if there's anything that, are we doing, I can't remember. I know we had these conversations, but are we updating the transportation system? I didn't take it off. So the state's the state is kind of helping us with this, because the grant for which the state gives money for cities to do this is going to come with a whole lot of new hoops. And it's a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion. And so basically There's one city, I believe, that's going to apply, and that's the city of, I want to say Salem.
Port Salem.
They're going to be kind of the guinea pig for this funding and this process. So for us, it was easy for us to say, we have questions to answer. We're not ready to go for a grant or to do this work yet. We need to work out other things. So we don't need to do it right now. Coburg doesn't technically have to have a transportation plan. We have one and we should update it when we're ready to, but we're not ready to. And so,
If you recall, council, the issue came up and as we were updating the transportation plan, we kept getting more and more issues, especially with the annexation and the development up in Coburg Creek.
Bear Creek,
And as we're paying staff to get this done, oh, now we got to change this. Oh, well, that changes what we did back here. And it was just constantly restacking everything. And we finally said, we got to stop restacking. We need to get all the blocks, identify what we're doing, then stack it. So it's really where we're at right now. And the technical assistance grant that Ann was talking about, that legislation that I believe is 2 years old now, and nobody has applied for it because they have to go through all these new hoops. And I know our regional facilitator was really pushing us to try and use that and let us be the guinea pigs for the system. And as you can see by the list of tasks, we didn't want to take on another one. So we bowed out real quickly.
I didn't take it off the list because it does need to get done. Will it get done in 23? Probably not.
Right.
But it doesn't mean it shouldn't leave the list because we do need to do it.
We do need to update it, but we got to do it right. And we'll let somebody else be the guinea pig with the new process.
Makes sense. Thank you for that clarification.
Anybody else have anything that they have questions on, or if they you did that good of a job?
Well, you know, and I will say yes. This is a process we've been working on for 5 years now to have this communication process. And I think it's working well. We're used to it. The department heads are used to it. I remember when we first started this, the department heads didn't want anything to do with this. Stand up in front of the council. Oh my God. It's changed a lot, and I appreciate the department heads and everybody's effort to make this a very easy, understandable process. I believe there are a lot of complex issues going on, but I think it was well communicated.
Yeah. I will repeat my mantra that this city is working at capacity. We don't have much wiggle room right now. In fact, we have no wiggle room right now. But the staff is working very hard, and there is just a lot on our plates right now. And that's not going to change. We have a lot of projects over the next few years. And so as projects come up, you know, we're going to be thoughtful as to whether or not we take them on. I mean, if opportunities are awesome, but if you can't get them done, they're not an opportunity. I mean, so we have to be really thoughtful about that. But we are also always looking for opportunities, especially funding opportunities. So we'll continue to do that. But capital projects, I think that we are here.
We're at a point where if we take anything on, we have to take something off.
Yeah, I think
Something
so.
else has to stop immediately if we take something on.
I did get clarification that the public workshop costs can be split between funds. So it takes a lot of pressure off any one fund to pay for that. So we're working on how that will work, and we're hoping to have an answer for that for the budget. So, and so with that,
With that, I see Counselor Alexander has joined us, and we're just finishing up the goals and department presentations. And Counselor, I just want to ask you if you have any questions or notes that you had that you might want to ask the department heads right now.
I don't. I went over everything and I looked deep into COLA, and I think, I don't know what you guys talked about as far as
Haven't gotten into
COLA.
COLA yet.
We
Oh,
haven't
okay.
discussed that yet.
Got it. No, I'm not yet. I don't.
Okay.
So the process then with this is I will bring this to the council meeting. We have time? Yeah, we have it. So we'll have this at April council meeting for you to adopt. Then this goes forward with the budget.
Well, thanks again to the staff. Good presentation.
Next thing that we have on our plate is the COLA. And Tim has done quite a bit of research. Sammy helped with that as well. And every city's being pretty diligent about this year because it's pretty volatile. So I'm going to ask Tim to present from a finance standpoint. We are asking council for direction on this before we can even begin to budget.
Counselor Lehman.
So could you give us the total cost increase if we had a 3%, 4%, or 5%? In terms of I think this would be tied to what their budget is. If it's just simply, if we look at the and if we get percent increase of that 4%, 5%, what would the total? I think just in terms of a ballpark figure, if we took what the 2001, 2002 fiscal budget was for salary and benefits, current staff without any changes. Current fund that we're, or the one we're just completing, for example. So without any changes in certifications and titles and everything, we just took the current salary and benefits line items, total aggregate amount, what a 3%, a 4%, and a 5% would be in that scenario towards the budget, just as a big picture look at what the impact of that increase looks like, regardless of changes that might be occurring with staff or title changes. Percent, 4%, 5% on that amount.
Actually send that out. We could get it ready and send it.
Councilor McConnell's up next.
I have no sound. I can hear Counselor Lehman and I can hear the mayor, but I can't hear the presentation at all.
How about now?
Now I can, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize I didn't have the green light
Sorry,
on. I
Patty.
apologize.
Way more furious.
Thank you for letting me know, though.
I was waving.
You can hear me okay
I-
now, though?
I thought you
Perfect.
just
Yes,
wanted
I
to talk,
can.
so I was waiting.
Thank you.
Patty, did you get the email with the staff report in it? Nicola? They sent them out last Friday, I believe.
You know, I had a problem with my iPad, and I just re-updated it before our meeting this evening, so I don't have it. I just have what I got from Sammy today, so I'm sorry.
It's okay, Tim, would you just repeat? It won't take that much time.
Sure.
To just.
Just want me to
let
start
her-
over?
Just let her know what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
you bet.
Just the basics.
So basically what we're looking for is direction from council on what to use for COLA this year with the kind of the volatility of the country and everything that's going on. We've seen record numbers of CPI lately. And we want to keep in mind that it has to be sustainable. So we'd love to give everybody the maximum, but we also have to keep in mind the future of the city and what we have for resources. We polled, we had responses from 29 cities and what they're doing. 5 of those are 5% or higher. I think 7.1 was the highest. And the average of those cities was 3.99%. I think that was pretty much a nutshell. Our PERS is going to be the same for 2023, so there won't be an increase there. We'll have minimal increases from what I understand in health insurance, but we will have some pretty substantial increases in liability and property insurance this year. 2024, I expect health insurance to go up because it's usually a year behind kind of the volatile environments a lot of the time. And it's health insurance, so it's probably going to go up. And I would anticipate the same for the other insurances, the liability and the property.
Okay,
PERS will go up almost certainly too. So we're just looking for some direction on where to start and some input from everybody.
Thank you.
That
Counselor Alexander.
I didn't get the email either, but I think that was enough. So that's all I was trying to say.
So to go along with Counselor Lehman's thing of getting some numbers.
Sure.
I'm in the same boat with the insurance and our health insurance. Do we have a dollar number that we could look at? Saying that it's going up 3% doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what that is.
You bet. The property and liability insurance, I will be getting numbers, I think, this week. I'll reach back out to my representative at WHA and see if she's got the information together. I talked to her Monday. Health insurance, I can clarify that for sure. And I know, like I said, PERS for sure is not going up because we go every 2 years. They analyze it, so we can certainly do that too, yeah.
And so it's, it's hard for me to look at these nebulous issues and say, oh, is that 50,000? Is that 250,000?
Okay.
And what's that going to do to the budget? Is that going to take Brian's street sweeper away next year? Or is it going to take a police car away? Or is it going to take an employee away?
Sure,
So,
understand completely.
if we could have some numbers that we can really chew on and look at, that would be helpful. Councilor Lane.
2 thoughts. One, in our finance audit committee, we had some conversation about last year we had asked for the top 5 or it was 10 in terms of increases percentage wise throughout the total budget. What were going to be the top 5 or 10 total dollar amount increases, and then what were the top 5 or 10 total percentage amount increases, so we can just see the big picture of where that budget is most dramatically changing. We also talked about, could it even be possible to see what the decreases were? What were the biggest decreases in our budget percentage wise and total dollar amount? So those 4 boxes, you can see the biggest outliers in the budget. You had indicated that you remember that conversation and that you were going to try to incorporate that again this year. And then secondly, it'd be nice also to see a pie chart side by side where we have the current year total meaning general fund budget or however you want to put it in. And then see how the proposed one pie chart side by side can change. So you can see salary and benefits, for example, 5%. The other changes. I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
So Fox?
So, I think this data, or if we have data from last year, it would be nice to see what the COLAs were prior years leading up, because if you look at Adair Village, 9%, maybe they're just catching up from a couple of years of lower COLAs, and where some places that are 2% with the CPI. So I think that the trend would be helpful to look at. The other thing is, I'm very curious about the scale, where it says 5 to 7%. How are they using that scale? Do we do anything?
You mean the cities that are putting a range instead of just a number? I believe in the ones I talked to verbally, they were, that was their ballpark and they hadn't decided on an actual percentage at
Oh,
this point, so.
okay.
They're all following the social security. We have 2 or 3 things that we track. And, you know, the social security benefits, the social security COLA is going to be substantial this year, the federal employees. So we look at all those pieces. And it's just substantial. It's the volatility this year is substantial. That, I mean, we normally would make a recommendation with budget, but this is so volatile this year that I just suggested that maybe the council needs to be aware of that volatility and give you a little bit of a voice in how we approach this.
So it looks like we need more information to give direction.
Sure.
So at this point, if we could get that information and send it out to the counselors and then just have them respond to you, so that we can at least get a poll of where the counselors stand and then go from there.
Sounds good.
That seems to me to be the process, but I'd certainly like to have more information before I make a commitment on what I'd like to see.
No, that's totally understandable. I think
Sure.
this isn't a conversation with, like I said, we've had with council before prior to budget. And so we can certainly do that.
I think there's, just from my personal perspective, you know, it's looking at those dollar numbers and what does that do for each of the departments. You know, obviously people need to, we want our employees to be equitable in the market. And we've fought that for a long time and finally almost got there. Now we're looking at this and what does it do as far as keeping them comparable, but also what does it do to keep the city running appropriately? And I really appreciate the department heads' input in previous years where they looked at it and helped make that determination on, you know, I'll take the hit on my budget, or I'm okay with a percentage less as long as we can keep our departments running. So that's where I stand with it. Is I'd really like to see the actual numbers that would affect the different departments or the city overall, and then be able to make a decision from there. Well, I think it's an important enough issue and we're close enough to the council meeting. Counselors, would you want to wait for the council meeting or do you want to do it by email prior? Council
Email is fine.
Email. I would prefer to look at it prior to the meeting.
Sounds like we have our answer.
Do you have clear direction on what Counselor Lehman asked for in terms of graphs and comparisons, and also what Mayor Smith asked for?
I assume, I know we've talked about that, those 5 or 10 items being on the budget, the whole budget, right? I assume you're talking right now, just since we need to get this number about COLA stuff, salaries. Is that correct? Or are you looking bigger picture? Because I don't know that we can get the full budget piece together that quickly. We can definitely do the salary piece.
The 3, 4, and 5%.
Yeah.
What the total impact would be.
Yeah, what range do you want?
I think, so what I'm hearing you say is there's 2 different requests. And which one should we work on first? Or are we not looking at doing one or the other? I thought in our conversation, you said that it'd be pretty easy to scroll through the budget, pick out the 5 or 10 largest dollar amount increases and smallest increases, substantial ones, not like very small numbers, but pick a number that's substantial, but still. So it shows us what have we cut out in our budget that we no longer need anymore. And maybe we dropped some software package. And that's why one year it was 25,000 and then now it's 5,000. So there's an explanation of why that dropped so much. I think that's just useful information for counselors to have. The other one is just the 3, 4, 5% total dollar amount.
Yeah,
And then I guess the third one was that incorporate that into the pie chart so you can just visually see our total budget and how it breaks out by the various.
okay, so the pie
current
charts,
year plus proposed year.
pie charts for now for the personnel costs, correct? In the short
The
term?
Pie chart was not for the just personnel. That
Oh,
would be
okay.
looking at when we're proposing what our budget's gonna look at.
Right.
okay, We've got the budget in numbers. Let's see what it visually looks like
Sure.
relative to other budgets and how it's changed from current year to the proposed year.
Okay.
I guess for council action, the first one would be the 3, 4, 5% total dollar amount. And so when we say, okay, well, what is the difference between a 4
Sure.
and 5%, 3 and a 4%?
So you want 3 through 5 then?
Yeah.
Is the range? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Councilor
we can do
Lehman,
that.
what do you want in the pie chart? Do you want the departments labeled? What, I mean.
Well, I'm seeing that you have administration, you have water, sewer, parks, salary benefits, interest or other total other things lumped together, but I think the water, the sewer, the administration, the
Streets.
streets, the benefits. I don't know, is there another 1 or 2 categories?
Materials and
Services and
services.
personnel basically is what you're looking for.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then we also do a comparison of the school fund budget. compared to one. Because it. Because they're all, facing, no matter where, they're all facing. the- They're not.
Mhm.
I think it's just a nice visual to see our total, was it $7 million budget?
Is,
Sorry. I think we're playing.
okay, so anyway, we were talking about what's listed on the pie chart and the personal services, and Counselor Lehman had mentioned he'd like to see the whole budget, which is 13.4 million or almost 14 million.
Mhm.
I think that wouldn't be representative to us because we've got these huge projects, $1 million projects that are skewing
Sure.
that right now. And
Sure.
So just get the personal services illustrated. on
That'd be
there.
fine. I just
Okay.
think, from a community, looking at our
Sure.
budget, what does our budget look like?
And I really like the comparison of last year to this year, and then also just maintain wherever anybody is right now in
Okay.
this fiscal year.
changes.
Give us the raises
bet.
of 3, 4, and 5.
I'm not trying to create more work, whatever you already have compiled, just
Mhm.
transfer that into a graphic that
Sure.
shows us that
You bet.
presentation.
And we
do.
could definitely do your top 5 in the budget presentation.
Yeah.
That's no problem. It's just that Tim has just received the budgets. They actually aren't even due yet, but I think most of them are in. But
Yeah.
some of us, like myself, I'm still working on my budgets. So our capital project budgets are a little bit difficult this year. So,
Yeah, for sure.
so anyway,
Right, is that enough direction for staff?
I think we're good.
Yes, I believe so.
Thank you. I think that's helpful and sharing what you need in order to give us some direction. So that's great.
Counselors at home, any questions? Good. Look at that, 8:00.
Nice
We're done.
work,
Perfect timing.
everybody.
Good work, everybody. Thank you.